My paranormal experiences are something that I've carried with me since I was a kid. I keep them with me. I like to tell these stories. There's people that had the same experiences that helps us kind of reach out to each other to help us understand what it is that's going on a different plane opposite of ours. I first started experiencing stuff when I was a little kid back in 79. My parents moved our family from Illinois to Indiana, moved us into a really big house. I don't want to like draw the big picture, but just so you can understand something about this house and the history of it. Big house, big enough that it needed two staircases from the main floor to get upstairs. Okay. And in that upstairs, there was one particular bedroom that separated, kind of divided the house. It was the one that had the two doors going from one end of the house to the other. Over the years, my brothers, sisters, and I, we've all, big family. We've always traded rooms with each other after a while. No real reason behind it, just something we always wanted to do, and we did. And there was a time when my next oldest brother from me, he and I had shared that bedroom in the middle of the house upstairs. This was probably 1 or 2 years after we had moved into the house that I started experiencing, sort of my sisters and my brother started experiencing weird stuff in the house. Now, while we hadn't actually seen anything, we definitely heard sounds upstairs, a little bit on the main floor, but mostly upstairs. The upstairs of the house was very active. We're in bed at night, school night, house is dark. We could actually hear footsteps going from one end of the room, actually outside in the hallway. We could hear them walk up to the door. Now, mind you, this is a really old house, and this had original door handles on both of these doors. We could hear them walk up to the door, unlatch the door. We could hear the footsteps walk in, and then we could hear the door close because it was scraping across the carpeting. And we'd hear the door latch closed. We could hear a few more footsteps walking across the floor to the next door. That's just that thing would repeat then. We'd hear the door unlatch, hear it open. They'd step into the hallway and close the door. Really nice of these ghosts, I guess. How did we know it was ghosts is a question you're probably thinking right now. Well, one night, my brother and I got really tired of this, and we thought it was one of our brothers playing a joke on us. So we devised a little plan that we're going to catch whichever brother was playing around. The plan was that, we're going to just lay there and act like we're sleeping. And when the door opens and closes, that's when we're going to turn the light on. We're going to jump up and we're going to take care of business. So we did. The door opened. We waited for it to close. My brother says, now. We jumped up. I turned the light on. There was nobody there. There was nobody there to be seen. None of my brothers, sisters, nobody. So we kind of looked at each other, got freaked out about it, and thought, all right, well, we don't know what this is, but probably just a ghost. But as long as he or she's not hurting us, whatever. We went back into bed, and I'm going to tell you, about 5 minutes after laying back in the bed, we heard just footsteps across the bedroom floor. We heard the other door open, and it closed a few steps out into the hallway, and then they disappeared. That went on for a very long time. As long as we lived in the house. I think we were there probably around 20 years before we all moved out on our own, went our own way. But in the meantime, there was a lot of other things that happened upstairs. Grade school, my brother and I are in their bedroom doing our homework. It was October. Anybody knows Chicago weather in October? It's windy, it's raining. We had 3-bedroom windows there, old school windows, all wood frame. Anybody that's over the age of 50 knows what I'm talking about. All wood frame windows, and they were loose because the putty in there falls apart, breaks up, it's gone. Wind blows, the windows rattle. Everybody knows this. Well, while we're sitting there doing our homework one night, the wind's blowing and it's hitting off the windows and rattling them. All of a sudden, one of the windows, we heard a straight up knock on it. And I'm telling you, there's a difference between the wind blowing on a window and rattling it versus the wind hitting the window. And it's not the wind this time. This was a straight up knock, the same as you would do if you were knocking on a door at somebody's house. Automatically, my brother and I jumped up. We assumed it was one of our brothers. It was good for playing jokes on us. I opened up the window, climbed out on the roof. There was actually part of the roof you could get onto from that window. Climbed out there, went around the roof. There was nobody there. My brother was not there. There was no ladder set up. There was no way he was going to get from the roof to the ground without getting hurt. He would have had to jump because, like I said, there was no ladder set up around the house. So my brother and I just kind of looked at each other, and you know what, man, these ghosts are something else around here. And then over the years, there was, like I said, there were some other things that happened. Mostly upstairs was walking. Occasionally, you catch out of the corner of your eye, one of the doors would not exactly open and close, but it would move a couple of feet and then just stop. Now, mind you, the furnace blowing in the house was not strong enough to create any kind of wind like that. The windows are closed. There's no fan on, no outside interference with the door that's going to make it move. Even, growing up then, I really kind of learned more about, people, ghosts and stuff like this, the spirits. And I just kind of figured, even for being a kid, as long as they're not hurting me, they're not hurting my family, they're just kind of hanging out in the house and they're walking around and doing their own little ghost thing. So I just kind of never bothered with it. Well, my sisters, two younger sisters, shared the bedroom above the garage that was attached to the house. At the time I was in Boy Scouts and went on a camping trip for the weekend. I come back home and my parents wanted to know if I had made it to the camping trip. I said, well, of course I did. You know I did. You took me to the school. I said, why? What's going on? They told me that my sisters were in bed sleeping. Somebody kept turning the light on and off on them, and they thought it was me. Well, no, it wasn't me. They knew it wasn't me. And then the following night, the same thing happened. Lights kept getting turned on and off in their bedroom. And then she says that whatever was there, whoever was there, started pulling the blankets down from I think she said around the foot of her bed. The blankets, they could feel the blanket being tugged away from them. So you can guess what happened in that story there. They jumped up, they were screaming, they were scared, they didn't know what was going on. Other than that, no one in our home was ever actually physically attacked by anything in there. There was no threatening messages, stuff you see on the mirrors like you do in the movie. It was nothing like that, except for the basement. The basement was a little bit different story. Nothing actually happened there. No one ever got hurt. But one of my brothers and I at different times had experiences in that basement. Part of the basement was cordoned off with a wall, and I guess you call them the French doors. This is pine doors, the knotty pine doors. Brother was in there sleeping. He used this room we all actually over a period of time used this room for a bedroom. And he said he was in bed one night, told us about the next day, said he thought it was one of us trying to get into his bedroom for whatever reason. He said that the door handle, and again, old house, this is all original doors and door handles on here with the skeleton key. The knob gets turned and you can hear it. You can hear the ratchety, rusty parts in there moving around. So he thought it was one of us. He jumps up I think he said he had a baseball bat in his hand. That's how we rolled. He opened up the door, jumped out, and there was nobody there. So after this, that was pretty much the only thing that ever happened with that particular brother. And then over a period of time, my brother and I that shared the bedroom upstairs, at this point in time, we decided we were going to take over that back part of the basement and make that our bedroom. In that part of the bedroom in that basement, we had two windows facing the south. The lights being turned off, the only light that's actually going to come through those windows is from the street light at night. We get into bed one night. I'm in the, to help you understand it, I was in my bed would be the northeast corner of the basement. And my brother had his bed situated just a few feet off of the corner of the southwest corner of that room. We hit into bed. We're done for the night. And I woke up, I'm not sure, maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I just woke up and I'm laying there like, oh boy, what am I going to do now? After a couple of seconds of being awake, I kind of got this creepy feeling that somebody was looking at me. There was somebody there. So I raised my head up and I looked across the room. And like I said, the only light coming in there was from that street light out there at basically foot of the sidewalk towards the front of the house. When I looked up, I saw a silhouette of a human being standing behind my brother's bed. And like I said, his bed was situated a few feet off of the corner. There was some shelving units there that he didn't want to block. So I looked up and I saw the silhouette of this human being behind my brother's bed. This is the part that's really embarrassing for me to tell, because when I saw this, let me throw in the other thing I saw with the silhouette. Not only was it a silhouette of a human being, but he had these nice little red beady eyes. It just scared the crap out of me. I saw this. I got scared. I ran out of the bedroom, took off upstairs. I slept on the front porch just outside the kitchen. And the next day, my brother comes to me. He says, hey, why'd you leave the bedroom? I woke up this morning and you were gone. I said, well, yeah, I just felt like I was going to sleep upstairs. He says, yeah, was that before or after the guy behind my bed? I said, yeah, sorry, John, that was after. Then throughout the years that we lived there, like I said before, there was multiple experiences of just kind of noisy people upstairs. This guy in the basement, he never really hurt anyone, but I think worst case scenario, he just wanted us to know that he was there, and he made me, my brothers, feel like he would be happier if we weren't there, or at least not in the basement in his space. But good news is that no one was ever hurt in that house. House has a lot of history. My brother did some research on it. He said that at one point in time, that house was some kind of like not a halfway house, but I guess like a women's shelter or something way back, probably in the 30s, 40s, maybe the 50s. I think he said he looked up, and he couldn't find any history, reports or stories, news articles of any kind where people had died there. But that doesn't mean that they didn't die there. We know that at least one person died in that house, probably more. Then over the years, I continued to have some more paranormal experiences that turned out to be pretty cool. One of them, my parents bought a house. Over the years, after my parents bought the house, a lot of my family was cycled in and out of the house. My sister and her husband and kids lived there for a while. I lived there for a while. A couple of my brothers lived there. Myself and a couple of brothers and I lived there. We just kind of filtered in and out over the years before, after a while, both of my parents had died, and they actually died in that house. My dad first, and then my mom later. And in her will, she left it to one other brother of mine, and he is currently living in that house. He is also a non-believer, and I'm fine with that. I don't make a big ruckus with him about it. But every once in a while, I like to go back, act like I'm visiting him, when in fact I'm actually there to say hey to the spirit that lives in the house. His name is Mark. Real long story is how I came into contact with him. I kind of want to tell you now. I kind of want to maybe do another show later, maybe. I was introduced to this ghost through a lady I met. I don't remember her name. I only met her actually a few times. She told me she was psychic when I told her conversationally, there must be a ghost or something in this house because there's some weird stuff that just happened. And she turns and looks at me. She goes, yeah, there is one in there. I was, yeah, how do you know? And that's when she told me. She says, I'm a psychic. Okay, I believe in psychic senses too, but I don't just believe you. I have questions. You can answer my questions, then I believe you. I asked her questions that a person would only know about me if I told them. And she answered all my questions, convinced me of her sense, and the conversation went there. When she ultimately introduced me, we walked into the house. She introduced me to the guy, his name is Mark, that had died in the house. And he's not there to hurt anyone. He's not there to cause trouble. He just likes to watch over his house. He likes to stay there, and he watches over the house. There was one experience where years ago when I was a kid living there, 1920-ish or so, had a party over there. One of the guys went nutcase on us, and he punched a hole in the wall. Sometime later that year, he was living in Tennessee. We'd kept communication with each other, writing letters. Guy told me in a letter, he says, man, I almost killed myself the other day. And he went on with a story about how he lost control of his truck, ended up in a ditch, flipped his truck. But that was the only incident I'm ever aware of where someone was actually, I could correlate somebody's bad experience with them doing something to the house that he did not want them to do. He's kind of a noisy guy. One night, my brother hosted a party. It was about 20-some, 30-some years ago. I had a couple too many to drink. And at the end of the night, I asked my brother, hey, you don't mind if I sleep on the couch? And he says, yeah. So it's the end of the night. Everybody's gone. My brother went upstairs to bed. Now, in this house, it's a 3-bedroom house, and all 3 bedrooms are upstairs. And I slept on the couch down in the living room. After laying there for a little while, I heard my brother. I watched him walk up the stairs. I know it was him upstairs. I heard him close his bedroom door from downstairs. And I'm laying on the couch trying to sleep. And after a while, I noticed I'm hearing this guy, Mark, and someone else talking. Found out later that was a friend of his. His name is Dave, but I never actually met him, was never introduced to him. I remember hearing them flipping a newspaper, a magazine. I could hear the papers getting turned over. And I actually looked up with the lights off in the house. Again, we got street light beaming through the windows so I could see enough shadows there. I kind of looked up, and that's when I saw, I think it was newspaper pages getting flipped over like he was reading a paper. And I could hear him talking back and forth with somebody. After a while, this noise is kind of keeping me awake, and I'm getting tired of it. And finally, I just kind of blurted out to him, hey, Mark, you guys mind being quiet over here? I'm trying to sleep. Now, one of the things that he never actually answered me back whenever I talked to him. There was never any verbal communication. It was always, how do we say this, like a blue field or a black field with blue letters that he wrote out to me. And they had some kind of like a gold or silver outline around the letters. And that was his way of answering me back or communicating with me, was a little black bubble type of thing with blue letters and the gold or silver outline of those letters. So I blurted out to him, and he says, hey, do you mind being quiet over there, man? I'm trying to sleep here. And just a few seconds later, there was that black bubble with the blue letters and the silver outline. And said, sorry. Minutes later, I was asleep. Over the years, I've actually asked this guy to help me find stuff. I'd lost stuff in the house when I lived there, misplaced things. And like a lot of people that have done this, that communicate with spirits, they're looking for something, and they know they've looked in this spot. They know they were there. They know they had their hands on it. And minutes later, that object, whatever it is they're looking for, appears right where they were looking. Many a times I'd lost or misplaced things, car keys, a phone, something, anything. And I would just blurt out, hey, Mark, I lost this. Can you help me find it? And his answering to that was, minutes later, I would find the object, whatever it was I was looking for. I have an ex-girlfriend from high school whose father owns some rental property. One of the apartment buildings that she rented out, her father actually lived in the same building upstairs from her, and she rented one of the units downstairs from her dad. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, crossed paths one night. she invited me over. Hey, let's get together. Let's talk. Let's carry on. And so we did. Went to her apartment and we did just that. We sat there, hung out, we talked, made, caught up on all, the years we hadn't seen each other. And she invited me to sleep over. And just so you understand, it wasn't like that. I slept on the couch. She went to her bedroom. She also told me about an older gentleman that lives there who died there. He's a harmless guy, but he's a tidy guy. She says there's countless times she's going to bed, she'll leave a few dishes or something in the sink, and she'll come out and get up in the next morning, and those dishes are clean, sitting in her dish drainer. So when I got there, she told me, a little bit about the guy living there. He was kind of a noisy guy himself. You could hear him walk from the kitchen through the hallway, and you could hear the bathroom door close. And she was telling me that once in a great while, you can hear the guy actually flush the toilet. And she says, it freaked me out when I first got in here. I heard that toilet flush. I called my dad, and that's when he told me, yeah, somebody had passed away in there some years ago. I think about now is I still carry my stories with me. I love to tell them. I love to get feedback on them. I like to hear other people's stories too. I hope this story brings out a lot of questions for me and a lot of people to communicate with. And thank you all for listening.
If you've had a paranormal experience and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us by going to myparax.com. That's myparaex.com. Thanks for listening.